Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jacob. In this video I'm going to explain everything you need to know about functions in Python. Now what is a function? A function in Python is a named block of code that performs a specific task or a set of tasks. Functions are crucial. They are very important for breaking down complex problems into smaller, more manageable pieces. Okay, and by doing so we are promoting code usability and help avoid redundancy. Okay, so in this video I will be taking you through all that you need to know about functions in Python. Now the first thing you will do when it comes to Python is when declaring a Python, you declare a Python functions with the def keyword. This def keyword is what tells the Python that what you're about to do, you're about to create a function. So after this def keyword, the next one that will follow is our function name. So I'll call it my underscore function. So I'll call it on my underscore function, then followed by parentheses. Okay, so I have a function name and then I have a parenthesis. So because I will be calling this function parenthesis here now, and inside this parenthesis we can pass in a parameter. Okay, we'll discuss that as we go. So after here, then we have our colon. So and then we come down here. Now we can now, let's say we are printing, so we print, let's say welcome to Python function. So we say welcome to Python functions. All right, so now if I should print this, if I come down to my terminal and I do something like this, and let's say I do Python and I do class.py class.py and I run, okay, I'm not going to get anything. Why? Because anytime I want to get a function to work, I need to call this function. I need to call it. So you have to explicitly call function before whatever condition or whatever block of code you have in your functions to work. So how do we now call our function? So for us to call our function, we come down here. So we'll do my function, then our parenthesis. So by so doing, we can now call our function. So let's run our code, and then you can see that we can now have our welcome to Python functions printed out for us. So this is how to declare a function, and this is how to call a function. You call a function by the function name, okay? Then you declare a function with the def keyword followed by the function name and then parentheses, and then you have your welcome to Python. So this is how to declare a function. So there have been different debates among developers what is parameter and what is argument. So I want to tell you in this video that a parameter is what you specify in the function definition. Okay, so when at the point of you defining a function, okay, what you are specifying there is your parameter, while argument is the actual value you are passing into the function call. So let us look at what we are seeing here. In our code here, we have our function, my function here. So if I now come here and now pass in a name, okay, let's say name here, okay, so this name here is now a parameter. Okay, because it's now a parameter, what do I need to do? Okay, what do I need to do? I need to now provide the name I want to give it. So here I will now say John. Okay, let's say John. Okay, but let me print out the name. So if I say print, so I'll say print. Look at it here. So when you are defining a function, whatever you put in this parenthesis, in this bracket, is what is referred to as what? As the parameter. Why the John we are putting here is the actual value. Okay, so the actual value for the name is John. So when we now call this function now and we run our code again, so you can see that we now have John printed out for us. So this is how a parameter and argument work. The argument is what you have in your parentheses at the point of your function definition, while the argument is the actual value you provided at the point of calling the function. Another crucial thing you should know about Python functions is the return keyword. The return keyword or the return statement allow the Python functions to return values using the return keyword. Okay, and this is very useful when you want a function to provide a specific result that can be used elsewhere in your code. That is why we define function as a reusable block of code. Okay, so functions can return values using the return keyword. Okay, and this is very important and very useful when we want the function to provide a result that can be used elsewhere in our code. Okay, so how do we now add a return keyword? How do we do it? So we can, for us to define a keyword, so we can do something like this, where we have, so here now let's create another function. So I'll create another function and I'll call it def. So let's say we are adding two numbers and return the total value of that number. So we'll now have def. So I'll call it addition. I'll call the function name addition. Okay, and then I'll declare a parenthesis. So inside this parenthesis, I'm going to give it two parameters. That means the value that I'm going to hold, that the parameter is going to hold. So I'll say a, okay, comma b. Okay, so I'm going to add the value of a and b together and return the total sum. So I'll do like this. So here I'll now add the return keyword. Okay, and then I'll now say a plus, okay, a plus b. Okay, so with this I can now provide, during my function call, I can now provide value for the a and value for b and add them and bring the total. This is not the only way to do it. I can create a variable here. I can create a variable and say something like this. I can say result, okay, equal to a plus b. Okay, a plus b. Okay, so when I do this, what I'm going to return is the result variable. So I will just say return the result variable. Okay, so this is how you can also do it. Okay, so you can create a variable that will hold the total value, the total sum of a plus b, or you can just return a plus b. Okay, so this is how you can do it. So we can now come down here and then call the function. So we can now call the function and say addition, and then in here, okay, so we can also provide a variable so that we can print it. So let's call it sum. So let's call we cannot use sum keyword, so I'll just call sum underscore total, which should be equal to our function, and then here I'll now provide 5,6. So 5,6. Okay, so when I run this code, okay, oh sorry, I need to print it out. So let's print our sum. So when we say print total sum or sum total, so let's say sum total. Okay, and we run it again. So you can see that we now have 11 as our result. So this is how to use the return keyword. So the return keyword is very crucial. Okay, like this example here, we are mainly printing. Okay, we are just printing the value. But what if we want to use the result of this value anytime we want to use this function anywhere. So anytime this function is get called anywhere in our program, okay, we can reuse this answer over and over again. Okay, so I can do another one. I can create another variable. Okay, I can create another variable and then provide another value. So I'll just add, permit me to add s here, so I'll just add s so that they won't be the same. So I can now say let me make here 67. Okay, and then I can now print the both of them. So I can say okay, or I can just copy and paste. So copy, then paste, and then we add s here, and then we run. Let's run our code and see what we get. Okay, all right, so this is how our function get called. So because we have declared this function, we can reuse it over and over and over again. And the reason why we are able to use it is because we are using the function name here, okay, which get called anytime we want to reuse it. Okay, so anytime we call this function and we provide different value, okay, we provide another value, the function will still perform this what the instruction we are giving here. Okay, so this return keyword is very crucial when you want to reuse the value, okay, from our total by adding a plus b. Okay, all right, so that is that about return keyword. Now another thing you should know is that is what we call default parameter. Okay, so a default parameter allow us to have a default value here, and then during our function call we can either provide it or we do not provide it. Take for example, permit me to comment this out so that we can have a clean code. So I'll comment this out. Okay, so let's create another function. So we'll call def, and then we say greetings. Okay, when we say greetings or greet, let's call it greet, then we can now pass in now in this name here. So if I provide a parameter name here and I assign a value to it, let's call it Jacob for example. So I'll call it Jacob here. So this is a default parameter. So by me providing this default parameter, it means that during when I'm calling this function, I can provide a name. How that works? So if I say print and I say print name, or let's say hello, let's print hello, and then outside of it we concatenate, and then we have our name there. Okay, all right, so if we call this function now, let's call this function. So in this function we are not going to, the first thing we are going to do is we are not going to provide any value during our function. So we just do greet, and then always remember your parentheses. Whenever you are calling a function, you must provide your parentheses. So we have our parentheses there. So let's run it. Okay, you can see that it's saying hello Jacob. Now let's call the function again, okay, and provide another value. Okay, and provide the value there. So this time we are printing James. So let's print James. Okay, and then let's run it again. So you can see what we are having here. So you say hello Jacob, hello James. So that is why we call it default parameter. So Jacob here becomes a default parameter, but it doesn't stop us from providing another value or overriding that default value during the function call. Okay, so this is how a default parameter works in Python functions. Please don't forget to like this video, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to share. Okay, if you are doing this, you are helping me to grow. Okay, so the next thing I want to explain is what we call global variable and a local variable. Now every programming language, not just Python, every programming language, not just Python, has what we call a variable and what and local variable. The global variable, from the word global, it means it can be accessed from anywhere, and by the word local, it means within that locality. Okay, now let's come back to code. So if we have a function here, for example, so if we have let's create a variable that is going to hold a particular value. So I'll now say I'll say age equal to 25. Then I'll now define a function and call it my underscore age, okay, then parentheses. Okay, let's provide a value. So I'll say name, so I'll have name here. Okay, yeah, let me have name here. Sorry, let me clear this up. Okay, all right, so I can have my colon, and then now here I can use this variable, this global variable, in this function. So if I want to use this variable, I can say print. So I'll now say print, and then I'll say name, our concatenation double string. Then I'll now say is, so I'll now call the age. Okay, I'll now call the age, and then I'll concatenate, and then double quote again. I'll say old. So name is age old. All right, I hope you understand this by now. Okay, so what we are trying to say is whatever name we are going to provide here at the end of the day, then we're going to provide this age is 25 years old. Okay, so let's have years old here. So we have years old. Okay, I know why you are crying, so there is need for concatenation here. All right, so now that we have a function here with name and value, so let's now, and then we have name parameters here. Now let's go down to the function call. Okay, so I'm able to use this age here because it's global. Okay, now let me create a local variable here. Okay, so I'll call it okay, let me just call it local variable for clarity's sake. So I'll call it local underscore variable. Okay, local underscore variable, which will be equal to joy. Okay, then I can also print this stuff here. Okay, so this time I'm not going to use age again. I'm not going to use the name parameter again. I'm going to change that from name to local variable, so I can use that here. Then okay, I can do something like this, and there we go. So by so doing, we are using this variable here in these functions, and then we are also using this variable here. Okay, so if I now come down and I'll say okay, so if I come down and I call this function, okay, so let's call this function my age, and then I'll provide it, okay, like this. All right, so let's run it. So the class missing one record. Oh yes, so I need to provide something because it's not a default value. Okay, because it's not a default value, I will need to provide a value here. Okay, and that is what he's telling us here. So my age is missing one required positional argument, name. So if I come here now and now say joy, so when I run this, okay, let's run this, and only concatenate string, not int. Oh yes, okay. All right, okay, so you can now see what we are now getting. So joy is 25 years old. Joy is 25 years old. Okay, so okay, let me change the name here from Joy to John. Okay, all right, so when we run again, So you can see that Joy is 25, John is 25 years old. So this is how the local variable works. Okay, now because I cannot use this local variable anywhere else outside of this function, remember when we talk about scope in any programming language, we are looking at the limit. Okay, we are looking at the limit. So here we are looking at the limit that this function is going to stop. Okay, so this function dies within this function. I mean, this local variable here dies within this my age function. Okay, this local variable cannot be used outside here, but this age variable can be used. Okay, so if I change this to age, for example, if I change this, if I have age here, for example, okay, it will work. Okay, why? Because it's a global variable. Okay, let's run it. Okay, we're going to have nonsense here. So you can see that 25 is 25 years old. Why? Because but I cannot come here and call this local variable. Okay, I cannot come and call this local variable outside of this function. So if I call it like this, you are going to see what happens now. Okay, why? You can see that it's underlined already. Why? What is it telling us? Okay, the reason is you can't it's not defined. Okay, it's not seeing this thing. So because the local variable is outside of the functions already, even though we are calling it with the function name. Okay, so the local variable dies within the function, while the global variable is used across, okay, the entire code. All right, so this is how local variable and global variable works in Python function. Now the next one we'll take a look at is what we call anonymous function. Now an anonymous function is a function, just like it says, it has no name. Okay, and that is where we use the lambda function. Okay, we use the lambda keyword to define an anonymous function, and we use this anonymous function in a situation where we want to write a concise function, okay, that will not allow us to just be defining function and providing all of this, just one line of code. Okay, so how do we do that? We can say what do we do? So let's say we are adding two numbers, or let's say we are multiplying two numbers. Okay, let's say we are multiplying two numbers. So I'll do equal to, so I have a variable. So for me to now create the anonymous function, I need the lambda keyword, so I'll call it lambda. Okay, so with this lambda, the next thing that I will do after the lambda keyword is the parameters. Okay, so I need a parameter that I will be using the value to add. So what do I do? So I now have y comma z. Okay, so this becomes my parameter, and from here, so from here I can now add the value that I want. So what do I want to do with these parameters? I want to add them together. So I can say, okay, I want to multiply them, so I can say y times z. Okay, so now that I have created a function. Okay, so let us now call this function. Okay, for us to call this function, I will use this variable to call the function. So how do we do that? So I'll do something like this. I'll do multiply. So let me have a variable, permit me to use x variable. So I'll do x, and then I'll do multiply. Okay, multiplying, then parentheses, and there I'll now provide a value. So I'll do 7,7. Okay, so when I now print x, okay, and I run it, let's run our code, and then here we have 49. Okay, so this is how the lambda keyword works. Okay, you should have a variable that will hold your value, okay, that will hold your anonymous function. Okay, and then the anonymous function is defined with the lambda keyword, and then with the lambda keyword you follow by the parameters that you are going to declare. Okay, so these parameters are going to hold the value you are going to have. Then you are going to do operation that you want to do with those parameters. Are you multiplying, are you adding, are you minusing, are you what operation? So you can do that after this colon. Okay, so this is how the anonymous function, and here we are now providing a variable and then adding the value that we want. So 7 is for y, 7 is for z, and then we are multiplying them. So 7 times 7 will give us 49. So you can see our result. So this is how the anonymous function works in Python. Okay, so the next one we'll take a look at is the yield and generator. So the yield is a keyword that is used in the context of generator. Okay, so and this is to help us produce a sequence of value over time, allowing the function state to be maintained between calls. So when you are making a call to a function, the state is maintained, is not changed. Okay, so how does that work? Let's see that in code. So we can define a function like this. Let's define a function. So we can say def what should be our function here? So let's just say yield function. I can use, okay, so I can use it because it's already a keyword. So yield underscore func. Okay, then parentheses. So inside this parentheses we are going to declare n. So add n here, n. So then our colon, then I'm going to loop through, we are going to loop through, okay, the value that we are going to provide to n. Okay, or let's just call it number. Okay, so I'll call it number for clarity's sake. So we're going to loop through the value I'm going to provide for this parameter that we have here, number. So we'll say while a number greater than 0, okay, while number is greater than 0, we want to yield. So while number is greater than 0, we want to yield. So say yield, okay, and then number. Okay, so what we are saying here is don't go far and don't go less. Okay, all that is within, okay, from 0 to whatever we provide is what we want. Don't add, don't minus, even when we say minus. So we're now coming down here, sorry, we're now coming down here, and then we'll now say number minus, okay, minus equal to 1. Okay, we're going to loop through, now going to loop through the number to get each individual value in the number that we're going to provide. Okay, so let's say we're going to do, we will do that outside of the function. So we say for I in our function name. So we say yield func, and then we provide a value. So what number should we have here? Let's say we are looking for 5, and then we have our colon, then we're going to print I. Okay, in case you don't understand, you are new to Python loop, you can check my previous video where I explain everything you need to know about Python loop. All right, so when we can now call this function, okay, let's now print. So you can see what we are having here. So we are starting from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so nothing is added, nothing is removed. It's not starting from 0. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that is the essence of this yield. Okay, so what we are saying here is while the number is greater than 0, yield, remain what it is. Don't add, don't remove. Okay, let it be what it is. Okay, then we are now removing this, we're now creating a space where we are now looping to get each of individual value in our number parameter. So we are now providing 5 here as an argument to our number parameter. So and then we are now printing. So depending on what, we can have 15, okay, and when we run the code we still have the same thing. 1 2 3 4 5, okay, 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15, okay. So 15 14, and there you go, down to 1. So this is how the yield keyword works in Python. The keyword argument allows us to pass variable length named argument to a function, while variable length argument, which will have args, okay, allow passing a variable number to of a non-keyword argument. So what we are saying invariably is that whenever you see the double asterisk with the keyword argument, so it allows us pass variable length named argument to a function, okay, while the variable length argument, which only take one asterisk, allow us to pass a variable number of non-keyword argument. So let's look at how that works in code. I can have a clean code and a clean place. All right, having commented that out, now so we need a definition, a function definition. So I'll call it info. So permit me to use info as a why info. What do? We want to use the keyword, so I'll tell it key underscore word, then our parentheses. We are now going to pass in the keyword argument, arg, so arguments, okay. So what we are telling Python is, okay, let's say personal information. Let's say we are getting people's personal information. You need their name, you need their address, you need their phone number, you need their email. So instead of passing all of inside the parameter, you can use the keyword argument to pass in that information. So by so doing, you are creating a parameter that can take as many as possible, as many parameters as possible, okay. Then you can now provide those key and the value in your function call. So how do we do that? So now we define our function. We have our function name as keyword, okay. So here, so we need to loop through this keyword to get each of the individual value. So we'll do for key, or let's do for key comma value, okay, because we want to get the key and the value, okay. For key comma value, we need our parentheses here. We need to print the keyword and the values. For us to print the keyword and the values, we need to use the format. So we're now going to print and then use the format key. So we do, and then we do double quotes, and then in there we'll now pass in the curly braces, and then we can now pass in our key, okay, and then we can also pass in our value, okay. So we can now call our functions now, okay. So when we now call our function, let's say our function name is keyword, so we can now pass in, okay. So we can now pass in, so what do we want? We want name, okay. The name should be equal to somebody, okay. So what should it be? Let's call Agnes, okay. Let's say Agnes. Then what's the address, or let's say email. So we say email will be equal to ag at email.com, okay. Oh sorry, there should be in a quote. So we have them like this. Remember, a single quote and a double quote are all the same in Python. Python doesn't quarrel you because of that. Then we can say contact, okay. We can say contact and then equal to, then a string, we say 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, okay. And we can add as many as possible, okay, to our function call here. So name, email, contact, address. Let's add address, Okay, so if we add address and we say equal to, and we say United States of America. Okay, so let's say United States. Okay, so by so doing, we have now been able to add as many keyword value as possible. So when we now run this program, okay, you can now see, so we now have name, we have email, we have contact, we have address. So the keyword argument allow us to add. So whenever you see this double asterisk, it means you can take as many as possible. But whenever we want to use the single arg, okay, without a keyword, so this doesn't have to do with a keyword argument, it's just argument. Okay, so it's argument that you are just providing, you are not providing key or value. And in such a situation, we will remove the key here, and then we'll remove the keyword here. Okay, and then we can also remove this. Okay, and then when we come here, we don't need all the key here. Okay, we just remove the key, we remove the key. Okay, so all we need is just the value. Okay, we can remove the key, okay. So when we now run the code, tuple object has no attribute items. Yes, sorry, so we don't need this here. Okay, all right, so you can now see to be provided, you don't need the keyword, so you can just do it like this for value in argument, and then you print the value. And when you are going to do with the keyword argument, okay, you can just, so in a case where we want to have a name, we want to have age, we want to have phone number, we want to have location, we can provide the key and the value. But in a situation where we have too many arguments, okay, but we don't need the key, we can just do it this way. So this is the difference between the keyword argument and argument in Python function. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, like, share, comment. I want to even hear from you. What's your take on this video? Is there anything you would like me to improve? Is there anything you want me to discuss? Let me hear from you. Thank you very much, and see you soon. Bye bye.